Hey everybody, my name is Josh. This is going to be a very technical cybersecurity deep dive, specifically for vulnerability management and Tenable and why your Tenable scans are failing, as well as a bunch of other settings and stuff that really are important for vulnerability management. And the reason I'm making this video is we have a community. There's like a lot of members in it, about 1,300, and we all use this shared environment. It's like a large corporate network with a lot of licensed enterprise security tools. Like there's a full stack. It's basically a SOC, like a security operations center. But one of the main problems that people have is the vulnerability scan process is pretty complicated, and there's a lot of settings and a lot of stuff that can go wrong. Scan might complete in like 1 minute or 2 minutes or something like this, and there'll be no vulnerability results. And this is really common like everywhere. In our community, like inside the cyber range, this happens a lot because of misconfigurations, but I know people like on the internet in general have these. So I'm just going to address main reasons why this might happen, and I'm going to explain the possible issues that you might be running into. So in this video, we're basically going to do our initial scan, and where the cloud firewall is mistakenly blocking the scan engine. The second scan is going to be where the Windows firewall is mistakenly blocking the scan engine. The third scan is going to be we, quote unquote, forgot to use credentials. The fourth scan is going to be we used the wrong credentials. The fifth scan is going to be everything is correct basically, but we didn't include compliance audits in our scan. And then the last scan is going to be a correct scan with compliance audits configured for STIG. And you can kind of see the differing duration between these. And then we're going to inspect the vulnerabilities in the scan results for each of these. And I'll kind of explain everything along the way in terms of the different settings that are required and the different areas where your scan or configuration can mess up. So you should come out of this with a better intuition for how vulnerability management works and like the interaction between the scan engine and the host that you're trying to scan. It's not like there's a problem with the platform, rather there's just like a lot of steps, and it's kind of hard to explain everything and understand everything all at once. So I'm just going to do a deep dive on this video that will help to, I guess, reduce the trouble that people are having. And if you're a member of the Cyber Range now, you can literally just follow along with what I'm doing in the video if you want to get a better understanding of how the scan engine works. But if you're not a Cyber Range member and you want to join, I'll put a link in the description below. It's definitely worth it. It's like a really realistic work enterprise environment with actual tools, and it's just really cool. So I'm going to turn off my video just to make sure I don't cover anything up, but this is like a really like a simplified version of the environment. Everything is inside of Microsoft Azure, and we have Azure subscription, and then of course we have a virtual network. You can just imagine this virtual network as your home router, and stuff is just plugged into it. So basically we have one big network and everyone's stuff is inside of it. So we have like one virtual machine, which is the scan engine, which I'll show you all this stuff in real time, actually. So these are all of the virtual machines inside of the Cyber Range. Currently, there's about 200. And then if I search scan engine, this is the actual scan engine in place that we're talking about. The scan engine is basically a computer that does vulnerability scans against other computers, and a vulnerability scan is just, it's looking for like holes or weaknesses in the operating system that might exist. So like out-of-date software, misconfigured OS settings or something like this. So this is the scan engine, and the scan engine, or pretty much any virtual machine, it will have like the Windows firewall, and then it will have what's called an NSG, or a network security group. This is basically a cloud firewall. And then when you create your own virtual machine, the Windows firewall is on by default, and it will also have a network security group or a cloud firewall created with it by default. And both of these things need to be addressed for the scan to work properly. So pretty much that's what this is. We're going to create our own virtual machine, and then all of this stuff up here, this is just other member virtual machines. So if we look back at the virtual machines in our environment, there's like, a whole bunch here, like 200. And this is our VNet object, or one of them. There's multiple VNets in the Cyber Range, but if we click connected devices here, we can see a bunch of different computers connected to the virtual network. And that's indicative of what this is right here. I'm just showing there's like a lot of devices in the virtual network, but we're going to be creating our own device and then kind of doing the lab with that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our own virtual machine. So if we go to Azure and we just search virtual machines, I'm just going to create, if you're a CyberRange member, your thing is going to look different than this. You might not be able to see like everyone's VMs, but we'll say create virtual machine. I'm just going to do this relatively quickly. I'm going to put it in CyberRange 1. I'm going to make a new resource group. If you're doing this in the CyberRange, you will select your own resource group from this list. You won't see all of these, you'll only see yours, so just select yours. I'm just going to name it my name. Put it in East US 2. I'll just use standard security type, and then I'll just use Windows 10. And then for your username and password, this is to log into the virtual machine. So just make sure that you remember what it is. We can always reset it if we have to. And then check this box and then go next for disk. For disk, we're going to use standard SSD. Next for networking. And then for virtual network, we'll use the CyberRange VNet. And for the subnet, choose the CyberRange subnet, which is right here. And that's this. We use the CyberRange VNet, and inside of that, the CyberRange subnet, which is what we just selected. And then our virtual machine is going to be put inside of here. And then this NIC network security group, it looks like this defaults to none, but a lot of people will just they'll just select basic. And if you say none, this network security group won't exist. So it won't have a chance to block traffic from the scan engine. But I'm just going to say basic because you're allowed to create a network security group, aka Cloud Firewall, and a lot of people do. So I'm just going to select it. And then you'll notice that it's only allowing RDP inbound. We'll talk about in a moment. I'll just check this. And then next, we don't need this for monitoring. And then we'll just review and create this virtual machine. And then create. And you might see this like monthly cost over here. This is actually covered by the CyberRange if you're a CyberRange member. So like, don't be too alarmed by that. I mean, the CyberRange costs money, but you know, we cover the cloud spend, of course. So while our virtual machine is creating, I'm going to go to the Tenable console and start creating our scan that we're going to use to actually scan our virtual machine. So I'll go to cloud.tenable.com and then log in. And if you're a CyberRange member, you'll be able to get your credentials for Tenable. There'll be like a thing here, like if you go to the CyberRange, there's like a thing here like account reset up or account reset and contact support, etc. So if you joined, you'll have like credentials, and you'll be able to enter your email address and stuff in here, and it will reset your credentials and give you access to Tenable and everything else. So I already logged in, so I'll go to vulnerability management. And so everyone gets access to this, by the way. So there's like, and I'm an admin, so I'll be able to see like a ton of scans in here from all the members. So it's like 1,000 items. So I'm going to, oh, there's more. Okay, I thought that was like not very many. It's like 2,700 scans. So I'm going to create my own scan for our lab. I'll go to advanced network scan. And I'll just name this like Josh Tenable demo YouTube, something like this. And then this is important, like pretty much everything in here is important, and I'm just going to kind of explain it. Looks like our virtual machine is done creating, but I'll create the scan and then we'll go back to the VM. So for scanner type, we're going to select internal scanner. There's like a cloud scanner as well. So if we select the cloud scanner, there's like another Tenable scan engine like way like out on the public internet that we can use. But for the sake of like speed and everything, it's better to use the internal scanner. So we'll choose this. And then this is the first thing that people mess up quite a bit. So if you click this, you'll notice that defaults to auto select, but you see like a whole bunch of scanners in here. It's because CyberRange members are allowed to create their own scanner if they want to, or they can use the one that's managed by the CyberRange. So if you say auto select, it will just randomly pick one of these in here, and you can see that most of them are off. They're like gray. Yeah, they're gray. But if you choose like local scan engine 01, this one's always on and it's always available. So you have to select this, or it will straight up fail. The scan will fail because it will choose a scanner that's offline. And then next, this is where we put our target machine that we're going to scan, our private IP address. So if we go back to our virtual machine that was just created, we can say go to resource here. Like so, or if you like went to a different screen, this is our, yeah, we can just say go to resource like so, or you can just search Josh VM1 in the VMs area. But we should be able to see our private IP address here. So we'll copy this and then go to the scan and we'll plug our private IP address in here like so. And we can leave the rest of this. And I'm just going to look through these settings. I'm not going to change everything. But there's a lot of different settings in here that we can mess with, but we're going to just go through it quick. Go to advanced. But basically, when you do a vulnerability scan, like when your scan engine is trying to scan your computer, it has to get through the firewalls and then get to the OS. And then once it actually gets to the computer it's scanning, it will use credentials to log into the computer, and it will look through all of the operating system settings and the programs that are installed, etc. But if the credentials you provide it on this screen are wrong, or they're not admin credentials, or you don't provide any credentials at all, it won't be able to do like a full deep scan of your target machines. So I'm gonna put these later. I'll just like leave this empty for now. And then I'm gonna skip compliance for now, but we'll go to plugins. And plugins basically is you're telling the scanner what to look for, or what to look for basically on the computer you're scanning. And obviously, I shouldn't say obviously, but we don't need to look for every single possible thing, because we're scanning a Windows computer, right? So we don't need to like do Mac OS 10 or OS X local security checks, or like any of this like other stuff that's completely unrelated to our scan. So I'll just disable all of these. But I do want to turn settings on, because settings will return some information about the target that's scanned that's useful for us to use. And I'll go to the next page. And also I want to turn on this like Windows stuff, because we're scanning a Windows machine. And if we go back one page, there'll be like, let me see, audit, compliance. This policy compliance, we're going to use at some point. And I'll explain that later. But basically, this certain security controls are in place to be compliant with CIS, like the Center for Information Security, critical security controls, or like STIG or something like this. But I'll leave this off for now. I'll just like save. Yeah, I'll just save this scan as is. The scan was saved. Go to my scans. I think I named this Josh, so I'm going to filter this down. This Josh Tenable demo for YouTube. And then this is our virtual machine, Josh VM1. If you forget where this is, we can always just go to virtual machines in Azure. We can just search it. It's here. And then this is our virtual machine. So before we scan it, I'm just going to log into it just to make sure. So we can say connect, and we can say connect via Bastion. Then I'll log in, my username. And if you forget what your username is in the VM area, you can go to help and you can go to reset password. And then you can always just simply reset your password here. This actually creates a new user on the virtual machine when you do that, just FYI. So here's our VM. It's logging in now. So we don't need any of this stuff. So I'll just disable it. It's not a big deal if you didn't. And then we are logged in. So at this point, we have our scan engine, everything set up. We have our network security group, or rather we have our virtual machine. The firewall is still on. It has a network security group. So next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our Tenable scan that we created, this Josh Tenable YouTube demo, whatever yours is named, and we will click on this. Or rather, we can just click the 3 dots and then we can launch it. We'll launch this. And I'll just let this go. And I'll come back when this quote unquote completes. Okay, we're back after literally like 1 minute. If I put my mouse over this, it says scan completed like 1 minute. So we can click on this, and then down here we can say see all details. And this is like the main thing that people have trouble with. They're like, my scan, it finished in 1 minute. Usually when it finishes so fast, it means the scanner it couldn't contact the virtual machine or like some other problem like this. So we'll just click see all details and just see like what we can see inside of here. So this is our scan history. We can click it. Then we can click vulnerabilities by asset. And we can see pretty much like nothing is in here, like literally nothing. There's nothing to see. And this basically means that the scan engine couldn't see the virtual machine. It's basically like off to it. Like it tried to scan it and then nothing got returned. So we can kind of troubleshoot this a bit. So remember when we created this virtual machine, of course the Windows Firewall is on by default, but we created a network security group with it as well. So if we go back to our virtual machine here, this is our VM, all the stuff here. If we go to networking and network settings, we can see these are like, this is a really important point here. So there's actually like 2 network security groups. There's actually 2 network security groups. One of them is actually attached to the actual CyberAgent managed VNet and subnet, which is this one here. And you can't change this, but it's wide open anyway on purpose. So this one doesn't matter. You can see it says CyberAgents. So if we collapse this, you can actually see another network security group that's attached to the VM itself. And you can see the inbound port rules where it's only allowing RDP inbound. And this will block any traffic that's not RDP. So if some traffic comes in that's like ICMP traffic or something like this, or some other random traffic, it will potentially be blocked. The way that the network security group evaluates traffic, it does it by priority. So if something comes inbound, like an ICMP traffic, it will evaluate against this rule first, and then this rule, and then this rule, and then finally it will default to deny everything. The best thing to do is either create a rule that allows all traffic inbound from the scan engine, or to just remove the network security group in general. And I know the Tenable scan engine is, I know what the IP address is. It's like 10.0.0.8, but we can just create a rule that allows pretty much all traffic inbound just for the sake of making the scan work. You don't want to do this in real life, but because you don't want everything coming into your network, but the CyberAgent is a honeypot, so it doesn't matter. But in this case, I will say IP address, and then this is the scan engine's IP address. So for example, if I go to scan engine, these are the virtual machines, local scan engine, and we can see the private IP is 10.0.0.8. So I'll say like allow traffic from 10.0.0.8 to any destination, any port, any protocol, allow. And then I'll put this at a lower priority. So I'll say like 200, and I'll just call this allow all inbound from scan engine, like this. So now we have a rule that's allowing any traffic inbound from the scan engine. So before, we'd have a scenario that looks like something like this. Potentially the NSG would be blocking the traffic inbound. So now we have a scenario, probably we have a scenario that's going to look something like this, where it's getting through the NSG, the network security group, but it may have trouble with the Windows firewall that's inside of the actual virtual machine itself. So if we log back into our virtual machine and we go to, we can right click start and say run. I'll just say wf.msc for Windows firewall. This might be hard to see. And we can see the firewall is on for the domain profile, private profile, and public profile. So I'll just leave this on for now, actually, and then I'll just relaunch the scan and see if we can see anything else. So I'll go back to scans. I'll go back to Josh Tenable demo for YouTube. You can see other people are scanning stuff. So I'll just like launch the same scan again and see if any results come back. Okay, we are back and we see this finished again in 1 minute. So I can click on this and then we can say, you can see there's like no vulnerability information. So we can click see all details again. And we see we have 2 different items in our history. This is the most recent one. So if we click on this, and then we click vulnerabilities by asset, we can maybe see something in here, and we see there's like no data again, actually. And that is because the Windows firewall is actually blocking the scanner now. So if we go back to our virtual machine that we're logged into, like again, in real life, you wouldn't want to just open up the Windows firewall to the public or whatever, or turn it off. You'd want to create a rule similar to what we did with the network security group, where we just allowed only the scan engine in. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to turn the Windows firewall off for all the profiles. So I'll just like turn this off for domain, turn this off for private, turn this off for public, and we'll say apply and OK. So now the firewall is off. So we'll go back to Tenable, and then we'll go to scans again, and then find our demo YouTube scan, and then we will launch this one more time. Okay, we're back, and the scan is completed again. We now see that the scan had a 2-minute scan time this time. So let's check this out and see if there's like anything to see. So 3, I guess. So now you see we have some results now, which is great. So before we dive into the results, let's just like take a look at the history. So the first scan, this one, the network security group was blocking the scanner. The next one, take 1 minute again. That time the Windows firewall was blocking the scanner. Now this time the scan took 3 minutes because it actually noticed the computer was reachable and noticed the VM was reachable. So it took some time to assess it a bit, and it took 3 minutes. Actually, this arrow is it's actually now getting to the virtual machine, and it deserves to be green. Maybe it deserves to be solid now as well. Green is kind of hard to see, but That's okay. So if we select the scan, which we did, and then we click vulnerabilities, I think we can say vulnerabilities by plugin. We see the severity for these, but they're all info level. It means it's like not like it's like not a quote unquote vulnerability. Rather, it's just some information that was discovered by the scanner. And we're able to see these because I guess not all of them. So if you remember like the plugins that we enabled at the beginning, we selected like the Windows plugins and we selected settings. So because we selected settings, for example, we can see these three, like the scan information, target credential status, and like some other stuff. And then we can see some information about the operating system because we selected Windows checks. So I'll just like to give you a reminder of like why we're seeing the stuff we're seeing in here. If we go to edit our scan and we go to plugins, you can see that we have selected the settings plugin here. And if we go next, we can see like Windows plugin, Windows Microsoft bulletins, and then user management. So if we go, I don't know if we can go back, if we can do this. That's why if we say vulnerabilities by plugin, we can see it's stuff from settings, stuff from Windows, and then I think this port scanner is actually from the scanner itself. So if we look at these a bit in a bit more depth, we can see, I guess, what some of them are. So this target credential status by authentication protocol, no credentials provided. So a lot of the time, another issue that people have is when they put credentials into the scan, which we're going to do in a second, they'll either forget to put their credentials, or they'll put their credentials for Azure instead of the VM itself, or they'll like fat finger and like typo the credentials, and it will say like something like authentication failure or invalid credentials provided, or something like this. You can see hints for like why your scan is failing inside of here. So if we click on this, every one of these things kind of will give us some more information about the scan, like what's happening. So Nessus was not able to successfully authenticate directly on the remote target. On an authentication protocol, Nessus was able to connect, but it basically failed because there were no credentials. There may have been a protocol failure, blah, blah, blah. It's basically, we didn't provide credentials, that's why. So if we provide valid credentials, the scan engine is going to be able to see much more than just info level stuff. Basically, the last scan, it got to the virtual machine, but it couldn't actually like log into it to see what's going on inside. So I'll just click vulns by asset, and you can kind of see something here. Cool. So I will go back to scan details, and then I'll edit the scanner again. And then I'm going to put invalid credentials, and then we're going to kind of compare what that results in terms of like the credentials, or in terms of the quote unquote vulnerabilities or info that's found. So if we go to credentials, I'll add credentials, and I will add host for Windows. And this is where you put your username that you used to create your virtual machine. So I'll put Josh, but I'll put the wrong password here. And then go ahead and check this stuff. Start remote registry, enable admin shares, and start the server service. It will allow the scan engine to look more deeply into the OS. And this password is wrong, by the way. We can leave this domain blank because we're not using it, and we'll save it. And then just go ahead and click save and launch here. And then we'll observe what happens with when scanning with invalid credentials. So we'll be right back. Cool, okay, we're back. Josh Tenable YouTube, so we can click on this and say CL details. And remember, we put the wrong credentials in. So, and let's just click on history first, just to like get a reminder. So this is the previous scan we did. It said no credentials provided, and this is the current scan that we just now did. So if we go to vulnerabilities by plugin, we can see this thing that says target credential status by authentication protocol, failure to provide credentials. So I guess it says the same thing. Nessus failed to authenticate. It's saying the same thing. I expected it to say something like, you put the wrong credentials. But I think if you put no credentials or you put credentials that are bad, it looks like it looks like it's going to say the same thing. So let me look. OS security patch assessment failed. I just want to see like what this says. Did not. The credentials supplied in the scan policy did not allow Nessus to log in to it, or some other problem occurred. So this is just because we put the wrong like password, of course. So if we go back to scan details, we can edit our scan again, and then we will put the correct credentials this time. So go to credentials, and people mess this up a lot because it doesn't ask you to put your password twice. So you can mess it up, or maybe they like think this is like whatever the password verification, like the secondary field or something. I don't know, but you have to make sure you put the credentials right because there's only one like kind of chance to do it. So cyber lab 1 2 3, and then we'll save this, and then we will save and launch this one more time, and this scan should actually be correct. So we will see you in maybe like 10 minutes or something. When the credentials are correct, the scanner will actually take more time to scan. It's anywhere from like 15 minutes to 40 minutes or something, but hopefully it doesn't take very long, but we'll be back. Okay, so our scan has finished. And if we hover our mouse, we can see it. This one took 15 minutes, which is really promising. So we click on this, and you can see there's now some vulnerabilities being found. So we can click on scan details, or CL details rather. And just a recap of our scans. Let's click on history first. And we can see like, this one, then NSG was blocking. This one, the firewall was still blocking. This one we had no credentials. This one we had wrong credentials. And this one we have correct credentials. So this one's already selected. So we can click vulnerabilities by plugin. And then now you can see something in here, this target credential status by authentication protocol, valid credentials provided this time. So if we click on this, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it basically is very likely saying that it was successfully able to log in, and with some notes down here. So the credentials worked. So back to scan details. If we order these by severity, we can now see actual like critical and high and medium vulnerabilities, as well as some lows. Like 7-zip got installed, it's out of date. Bunch of Windows updates need to be applied, and some other stuff, some whatever Defender antivirus signature is like out of date or something. I don't know. But basically, the point is we're now able to like look in depth. This is a poor like depiction of that, but we can like look into the operating system and actually log in and then see in depth stuff that's in the registry and like Windows configs and other stuff like that. So as a recap, first we were blocked by the network security group. We were blocked by the Windows firewall. We got to the VM, but we had invalid credentials, but now we can actually like see inside of the VM. So there's one more thing I want to do before we like wrap this video up, and that is compliance audit, or compliance policy audit, however you want to say that. You can, if you Google like what is this a STIG, for example, we'll kind of explain it, but it's basically a checklist of settings that need to be in place on any given system to be quote unquote like DISA compliant, or like STIG compliant, or however you want to say that. It's a really similar thing with like CIS top 18 controls. It used to be top 20, but you can do another one like this where it will check the operating system if all of the controls are like in place or not. And in defense and like the military and stuff, they tend to use DISA, and they use STIGs, like Security Technical Implementation Guidelines. And in the cyber range, we also use STIGs as well. And that's like another problem that people have in the cyber range. So for example, like, the STIGs, or like the audit tab, is like not showing up after the scan. And it's usually because of one of these like 3 or 4 things blocking it. So we're going to actually configure those now, and then we'll take a look at what that looks like. So we're going to edit the scan. And then in order to check for compliance, I forget what that's called every time, like compliance policy or compliance audit. Before we actually like configure this, we need to add the appropriate plugin. So if we go to plugins and we search for compliance, it's called policy compliance. That's what it is. We'll enable this. So now we have policy compliance, we have settings, which allows us to see credentials and authentication, or allows us to see if our credentials worked. And then we have the Windows stuff as well. So we will go to, actually, I'll just save this first, and then I'll edit it again. Oh, I didn't have to edit it, I guess. So we'll go to compliance, and then we're going to add compliance audits. And the name for this happens to change sometimes, but it's inside of Windows. And there should be one called like a STIG or something like this. Oh, damn, there's a lot. DISA. I'll search Windows 10. Okay. So we'll choose, and I'm gonna like redo everything to use Windows 11, but we're using Windows 10 right now. So I'll choose DISA Microsoft Windows 10 STIG version 3R4. So we'll pick this, just click it, and then don't mind what this stuff is. It will take time to explain, but this is like org specific settings that you want to check for, but we can just leave it as default and say save. And then now we see that we're going to be checking against DISA and STIG, or we're going to be checking against DISA STIGs specifically for Windows 10. So we can just say save and launch, and then we will wait another, probably it's going to be like 15+ minutes. The last scan took 15 minutes to run. I don't know why. This should be running again. Let me just like refresh this. I might have clicked save on accident instead of save and run. Okay, I clicked run. So we'll be back in like whatever, however long it takes. So we will see you soon. Okay, our scan completed. So we can click on this. It was stuck on publishing for a long time actually. So let's click on see all details. And then let's click on history just for like a quick recap. And we can see like the different lengths. So failing because of NSG, failing because of firewall, failing because of no credentials, failing because of incorrect credentials. And this is a successful scan with correct credentials that looked at Windows vulnerabilities. And then this final scan is everything in here, Windows vulnerabilities plus assessment for DISA STIG compliance. So if we click, you can see there's an audit tab up here, which is what you see when you are trying to scan for like compliance audits or compliance checks. But if we click our previous scan, this is like another problem that people have. You can see there's like no audit tab. It's just because we didn't select to do that. Like we didn't include DISA STIG, but people will have like the audit tab missing, but it's usually because like one of the other things is messed up, like the credentials are wrong or something like this. So we'll just like take a look at this and we'll click on audits. So actually we'll first click on vulnerabilities by plugin, just so you can like take a look at them. And then this is audits. This is for like the DISA STIG compliance checks. So we can see like failed, warning, and then passed. And the failed ones just means like, there are security settings that need to be in place that are not in place yet. So inside the cyber range, if you're not a member, basically there's like an activity where we go through and figure out how to apply these different security configurations to make them pass. So if we like reorder this, we can see by default, these are the STIGs that are already in place out of the box in a Windows 10 VM in Azure. Like you can see in the cyber range, if I search for audit, there's like a 88 post about list, like no audit tab, no audit tab. I'm not able to see audits. It's usually because something is wrong. Like if we look at this, It's usually because either like the NSG is blocking it and it can't scan, the firewall is blocking it and it can't scan, the credentials are wrong or missing in the scan and it can't do a full assessment, or like something in between. It's usually something like that. If all of those things are in place, you should be able to like successfully scan your virtual machine. And inside the cyber range, the network is a bit, it's a bit more simplistic. Like this is what the actual topology looks like in the cyber range. There's actually two virtual networks and there's like peering between them. But even this network is relatively simplistic to what you might see at work. Like at work, you might have like any number of random firewalls or appliances or some other nonsense like in between your scan engine and the virtual machine, or like whatever it is you're trying to scan. But it basically all boils down to this. Like there just needs to be, like, from the scan engine to the thing you're trying to scan, there just needs to be a clear path like through the network one way or another. It needs to be able to get to it. And then you need to have like correct scan configuration, and you need to have like valid credentials. Otherwise the scan's like just not really going to happen. So hope this helps. And if you're interested in joining the cybersecurity community, there's like over, I think there's nearly 1,300 members in there now. We all use this same network and we can all practice and talk about stuff and make posts and help each other out. And there's like an internship component as well. And Tenable's not the only thing we have. We have like basically a full SOC. We have a Sentinel setup, which is a SIM. We have Defender for Endpoint, which is a endpoint detection response system. A bunch of virtual machines, like live honeypot environment. And we actually do threat hunts every month as well, where people can actually win money. And this is part of the internship as well. So it's pretty good. It really helps a lot when you're trying to bridge the gap between like just having knowledge from Security Plus and being able to get a job. The cyber range job is to bridge that gap. So check it out. I'll put a link in the description. But yeah, let me know if you have any comments or anything. I'll try to answer those the best I can, and we will see you in the next video.